Please be advised that the content of this podcast and others featured on Join the Conversation with Summer Keith may not be suitable for all listeners. Our discussions may cover topics relating to mental and physical health, including but not limited to subjects such as suicide, domestic violence, and women's healthcare issues.
One of the things that's super important in the midwifery care is the education that you provide for the patient of what's coming next, and the empowerment that you give women for them to take over and make the decision of what is important for them.
Join the conversation with Summer Keith, the podcast that brings you news you can use and solutions to solve problems.
Join the conversation.
Welcome to Join the Conversation with Summer Keith. This is where we will be talking about a myriad of different subjects that we hope are going to be interesting and helpful to all of you, and everything we want to discuss on this show is going to be relatable to all of our viewers. And one of the things I'm sure is going to be very relatable to all of you women is giving birth. And in this case, it's giving birth at home. And so our guest today is Arianna Escobar, and she is a midwife. And I have so many questions for her. And I also want you to go ahead and explain, from the get-go, just the advantages of at-home births.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. The main important thing that I want to start with is home birth practices start with prenatal care. And our prenatal care is very, very different than the obstetrical care in the sense that our visits are a lot longer. We spend 45 minutes to an hour with each patient.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is. We do see our patients in the same obstetrical schedule that you would have at the hospital, but we do everything ourselves. So we do vitals, we can draw labs, and usually those take about 10, 15 minutes. The rest of the time that we spend with our patients, it's a lot about getting to know each other, for our patients to know us very well, for us to know them. We talk about nutrition, we talk about exercise, we talk about the emotional part, how their partnership is doing, how she's doing with her mom, their dog, everything. Because for us, pregnancy and birth is a family affair. It's just not a mom and a baby.
Holistic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and a big one is education.
Sure.
Very, very big is the education that you provide for the patient of what's coming next, and the empowerment that you give women for them to take over and make the decision of what is important for them. Midwifery care is very tailored for each individual family. And for us, evidence-based is important. And for our clients to have the resource for all that education in the obstetrical world, the midwifery world, and for them to come and give us what they want to do. So it really starts there.
Give me an example of evidence-based care.
So evidence-based would be, we usually work with a website and a nurse research midwife that kind of gathers all the studies that happen around the world and the States and puts it in words for us to understand. So let's say gestational diabetes is one of the topics that is spoken to in pregnancy. And so women that go through research, and then what is the research saying about gestational diabetes, about testing?
Okay.
And so us to provide that information to our clients, so then they can read what the evidence is saying out there about testing, about results, and about all of that. And so they can tell us what they want to do. GBS is another one. So these are topics that it's group beta strep. It's a test, group beta strep. So it's a test that is done also at the end of pregnancy. So these are all related topics.
So the baby doesn't get strep?
No, it's just a test that is done for women. It's a vaginal swab that happens at 37 weeks that tests you if you have it or if you don't. It's a very common bacteria. We all have it. But it is important to know if you have a colonization that's greater in your vagina when you're going to go into labor, because then that changes things.
And it can affect the baby?
It could potentially, yes. So informing our parents first, testing if they want to test, and then knowing what their options are. if they want to take antibiotics, if they don't, if they want to do expected management. Those are really important information for our clients to know so they can make that decision. So I think that the time that you spend with your families and the relationship that you build together, then trusting us that we are not referring or recommending to do things out of our wanting to do for us, and that our parents are making decisions that are based in education and not fear is super, super important to us.
How often are the fathers involved? Asking for a friend?
I'm going to say 98% of the time they are.
Good. That's good.
In midwifery, parents that come from home birth, parents are really, really involved. And most of the time, dads are a little bit scared. They're usually the ones that kind of hold mom back a little because there's no control. They don't help the baby. They're just worried about their wife and their safety and their baby's safety. And I think it's really interesting after we do a home birth of a dad that was a little anxious or unsure and has a home birth, how they end up being our number one cheerleaders all the time. They're like, oh, I'm off now. Oh my God, why didn't you already tell me about this before? It happens 100% of the time. It's really interesting.
How do you set up the scene? I mean, do you have to have make sure that the sheets are sanitized? I mean, this is all new.
Yeah.
As I said, I had mine in a hospital setting.
Absolutely.
So I have no idea, no experience about that.
Yeah. So we do have medical licenses. So we bring pretty much a portable labor and delivery room to your house, except we don't make the room look like a labor and delivery. Prior to delivery, we have our patients get a bunch of supplies that they're usually home, towels, sheets, plastic, and we'll put it together. Plastic is sometimes we're going to protect the mattress. So put a plastic.
Like saran wrap or something? Or...
No, like a mattress protected that's like waterproof.
Okay.
Or if they want to have a water birth, we like to put like plastic on the floor to protect the floors just in case. So there's a method to all of this, but the parents put gather supplies. We bring our supplies. Mom calls when she's in labor and we come. We monitor baby and mom. We do vitals. We listen to baby.
So they'll have something on their wrist? Or
No, they don't have anything. We just use a Doppler, a handheld Doppler, and we listen to baby's heartbeat with a Doppler.
Okay.
And then when we do vitals, we'll put a blood pressure cuff. We do a pulse. We do a temperature. And then we don't do those. We don't do those often unless it's something that we need to look into.
Okay. So I have a question.
Yeah.
My daughter-in-law had to have a C-section because the cord wrapped around the baby's neck.
Yes.
So it's something like that arises. I mean, that's so scary.
Yeah.
How would you handle that?
Babies talk to us in their belly, right? That's how listening to the heart tones is how we know how babies handling labor. A third of babies are born with their cord around their neck.
30%?
Quite often. Yes. A third of babies, yes. Most of the babies, if you think about it, they're inside swimming. Yeah. The cord is going to be wrapped somewhere. So, what you do is we first try to see if he gives us a little. Sometimes you can lift it over the baby's head and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes baby's completely born and you untangle them before they go into mom's chest. I'm assuming in the case of your daughter-in-law, heart tones were really dropping.
Yeah. That's
and
what
baby was in danger, right? So if that is happening at home, we're going to transfer to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because our number one priority is a safe mom and baby.
Right.
So, we would go to a higher level of care. It has happened to me where
that was scary.
We would for sure knew this mom was going to have a home birth. This was her 5th baby.
Wow.
And she had twins vaginally. So I was like, there is no doubt we're having a home birth.
Yeah.
And, heart tones were like, not okay, no reassurance. She wasn't dilating. All the tricks that we did at home to make everything back to normal did not work. And I said, okay, well, this isn't happening. We're going in.
Yeah.
We call an ambulance. We go to the hospital. She ends up with an emergency C-section. Again, heart tones were tanking every time she had contractions. And we end up finding out that the cord was wrapped so many times and was so short, the baby couldn't physically come down.
Gosh, it just...
So, this is why you hire a professional. Right. We can come, we monitor, we know what normal is, and we know when things are steering on normal, we can bring it back. If we can, we're going in.
Yeah.
I mean, baby's mom and safety really is number one.
Ultimate, yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have any anecdotal stories, like some kind of a really cool outcome and
Yes.
funny things?
I actually have one that is funny and interesting. So, in the state of California, legally, we cannot do breech deliveries at home.
Oh,
But if the baby's coming out, and this is one of the reasons we train often is back in.
Explain breech to
breeches-
some of the people that might not.
Yeah, absolutely. Breech is when baby comes booty first
Yeah.
instead of head down.
Yeah.
And so that in the state of California, we can't, if we know that it's a breech delivery, we can attend it
Sure.
at home. But we prepare for every scenario because in this scenario, it was a surprise. And the mom called us. They say there's meconium. That means when the baby poops inside.
Right.
And we're like, okay, we need to rush. We need to figure out what's happening and see if we transfer. So Paula gets there. Paula is my partner, by the way. And she gets there about 5 minutes before me. And when I enter the room, I see this mom and I see some little testicles just.
Oh my Lord.
And I was like, oh my God. But it ended up being beautiful. We did our steps and our protocols. We call 911 so we can have them in standby for just in case we need to rush to the hospital. We didn't lose any time. And she pushed the baby, a beautiful baby boy out.
Wow. Because that really is, I guess, I know a little bit about A&P. I took biology. I've been to college and stuff, but I've never done anything that intense, obviously. But that's going to be the largest width of a human baby is going to be their hip section, right?
Their head
their
of the
shoulder.
hip.
Oh, okay.
Right? So usually the head is usually the widest part.
Okay.
So if they're coming, the head would be the widest. But if they're coming booty first, then the hips will be
pretty wide. Yeah.
It will be as wide.
Yes, I keep doing this because I'm just so analytical in my head.
Yeah.
Trying to, because
But no,
it's a big deal.
No, because the shoulders move.
Oh, they kind of come together like
the
that.
shoulders in.
Yeah.
They bring one shoulder out, then the other. But yeah, I never expected walking into her house and see testicles coming out of the home.
So, okay, again, just because I like to know more and understand stuff. So I'm very image minded, I can see all this stuff in my head. So, okay, when that particular birth happened, so, the old typical thing where they hold them upside down by the little ankles and then, make them cry. So how did this kid gasp for air? Well, I shouldn't be. So I'm just getting Jack Davis.
Absolutely. No, we don't hold babies up by their feet anymore. Babies usually have a reflex when they feel air in their face and they try to breathe on their own. If we have a baby that's not breathing on its own, then we stimulate. So you can touch the bottom of the feet. You can put your fingers through the back. That's a lot of stimulation for a body that has never felt anything other than a mom's womb.
And the warmth.
Correct. So usually I'm going to say 95% of the time for a home birth, that's really all you need. Just a little stimulation. We might need to help baby a little bit with a couple of breaths. We are trained by the same team that comes in the hospital to resuscitate babies. We have the same training because we're the primary care providers for mom and baby.
Okay.
And we have the same equipment if we need to. So the next step would be using a mask and trying to breathe for baby. I'm going to say 98% of the time.
Oh, like an oxygen mask?
It's not oxygen, it's just pressure. Right? When babies first come out, what they need is pressure.
Stimulate the lungs?
To stimulate the lungs. So pressure to push the fluids out of the alveoli into the body. So then air can be the one in there and doing the exchange. So that's why we use pressure to start with.
Wow. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. I mean, you must be exhausted when you get.
I don't think so.
Really?
So women release oxytocin, and we as birth workers get the same oxytocin level. I call myself an oxytocin junkie because you're so empowered by women's strength, right? And the power, and if you really think about it, her uterus just created a tiny human and hold space for a baby to grow, a placenta to attach to the uterus. And then in a couple hours is all the work to make baby come out. And then for the next 6 months, she has everything to feed a baby.
That's right. Yeah.
It's so empowering.
That is
Seeing-
amazing.
And seeing women work as hard and
Right.
they're rewarding on their face when they have their baby in their chest and
Yeah.
the emotions, it's just something else.
It's so miraculous. And
Absolutely.
I just think that, I mean, I have so much to say because, I've gone through life and now I'm, grandma age and everything. And I don't like to hold back the truths of life and wisdom for men or women. But, by God, the truth is we do give life. And I'm just going to go out on a limb. And I hate terminology where they say she's knocked up or, I mean, life should be so much more respected, and I just don't see it that much anymore because I've been around now. It's not like I was born yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And when I, in the 40s, 50s, well, I wasn't here in the 40s, let's say 50s, 60s, 70s, there was just a lot more mystery and more respect and loving and now it just feels like in some circles of all cultures, but I will say in our United States, we really do suffer from having a sense of care and compassion for women who are pregnant,
Yes, absolutely.
Don't you agree? It just...
Yeah, and I feel like there's such a fear base in the hospital. It's all this fear. And I'm like, all you need to do is just empower her.
Yeah.
Empower her that God made her perfectly to birth this baby and that she has everything in her, and be there with her. And a little bit TLC and encouragement words in labor makes such a difference.
It does. Especially for the first-time mother, because you don't know anything about what's about to happen.
Absolutely. And I speak for myself. The way I got into midwifery is because my first pregnancy, I had obstetrical care for about 7 months. And everything was 15 minutes appointment, in and out. This is what's happening next. And so I started doing childbirth education classes and being empowered to speak about the things that were important to me for labor. And when I came at 7 months to my OBGYN, I asked her, Mom, what if I want to keep birth standing up? And her answer was, I'm too old to catch a baby on the floor. And I was like, okay, well, I think protocols in here are just not working for me. So then I was think outside the box, look for midwifery, interview, found my partner was my midwife, Paula Tipton Healy. And we're rushing to get to know each other, and those hour appointments and all the education and empowerment she gave me just completely changed my world.
Wow.
And having a baby in the house, immediately I was like, wow, this is the gift I want to give to other families, because it was so empowering. And I did that. I grew a baby and I birthed a baby. And now I'm going to feed my baby for the next 6 months.
Yeah. So back to the part about giving birth standing up.
Yes.
That sounds real uncomfortable. I don't even think I'd be able to be in the position to be stable on 2 feet with.
You would be surprised.
Yeah.
You would be surprised. I just did a birth a couple months ago for a mom, and she had delivered her baby in every single position. The last 3 the 3 births are on for her. The first one was in hands and knees. The second one was laying back in the pool, and the third one was standing up. Her idea was to get in the tub, but everything just came so quickly. And she told me, she's like, you know what? From all 3 positions, standing up was the easiest.
Oh, really? But at some point, again, I just,
Yeah.
I think I have a touch of Asperger's, and I'm not just kidding, but I really, I taught.
Yeah.
So I have to vision this standing up. You're standing up, but you, at some point, just because of the way we are made and, our body motion and everything, kind of push it out, right? Okay.
So she leaned forward.
Okay.
She was holding onto the bathroom counter.
Okay.
And she was just leaning forward with her legs open. And when she pushed, the women usually that are standing up, they squat a little bit.
Yeah,
They bring their hips down a little bit. They don't squat all the way.
Right.
Some women do squat all the way. So that's the beauty of home birth. Any position the mom wants to do.
Comfortable. Yeah.
Yes.
So who caught the baby?
I caught the baby.
So you're right behind her.
I'm right behind her on the floor.
Here comes the baby.
Here comes the baby. And we have a student, and she brought all the things, and We put chalk pads in the floor and we bring all
what?
chalk pads. They're like the blue pads that you have in the hospital to protect blood to go through. We have those at home too.
Okay.
And we use them to protect
Yeah, of course.
couches and beds and
Floors. So, yeah.
Mhm. And she just birthed her baby. We hold it and then we pass it in the front and she'll wrap her baby in her chest, walk to her bed and lay down in bed.
Exhausted. It just makes me tired
It's
because I can see it,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, she wasn't in labor for very long.
Good for her.
Yes. She has really quick deliveries. And some women do and some women don't. And that's the beauty of this. Like sometimes you're going to be at a home birth for a whole weekend.
Right.
And sometimes you're going to be at a home birth for 3 hours. We're prepared for both.
Yeah. Wow. You had to call for pizza and everything, right?
Oh, yeah. We call for pizza and coffee.
Well, I was 26 with the first one, and I was teaching aerobics up until like a week before I gave birth. And I've always been, pretty athletic and physically active and everything. And of course, I took Lamaze because we're talking a lot of
absolutely, yes,
years ago. Yeah. And so I was ready, and I was reading, I'm just really everything's by the book for me. So I'm reading this little pamphlet because, again, this was before cell phones, y'all, way before cell phones. And I'm reading everything, and I was going point by point. Keep in mind, this was the first pregnancy, and my late ex-husband was an engineer, so he was real methodical in his mindset as well. So we were both kind of nerdy about this whole thing. And I'm reading this little checkoff list, like, ready to, because I felt like I was already, these were not Braxton Hicks contractions. I knew they were real because,
you could feel
it feels so strong, And I was reading off all the things, like rapid breathing and, your lips might get a little white. And I'm checking off all these things and I'm thinking, we got to go to the hospital right now because I've checked everything off. And it's just funny because it was more scientific in my mind than it was, trying to just feel like I was afraid. Instead, I was just ready to go because I checked everything off. So we get into the car and we go. And I was already like 6
centimeters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You've done all the hard work.
Yeah. It was almost done. But I think a lot of it was because I was really in good shape.
Yeah.
Honestly. I'm not saying that.
Well, and you probably were not afraid of birth.
No, I was excited. I wanted to see what this little kid looked like, It's like I was bonded with him. And
I think a lot of women these days are afraid of the pain.
yeah.
And they just want the epidurals because they're afraid of the pain. There's this fear around pain in today's world that I don't think it was as prominent in your time.
No. People were more, it was sort of the natural time because I was like, the love child age of, the 1960s and 70s. And it was like organic food and stuff. And so I was ready for it.
And midwifery kind of was the one thing that happened always. And then the obstetrical work kind of pull it out. And then midwifery kind of disappear. And then in the 60s, it came back again.
Yeah.
In this state, in this country. Midwifery is very, very big in Europe and in other parts of the world.
That's right.
And sometimes they work together. Sometimes it's just really the midwife. So, but, another important thing about midwifery that I don't think we really touch much is also the postpartum care is really different than the obstetrical care. Because you have a baby in the hospital, you stay for a day, then you go home. And then you don't see your OB again for 6 weeks. And then you just have to make a different appointment to go see a pediatrician. Where at home, we come to your house and do a 1-day visit on both mom and baby, a 3-day visit on mom and baby. We do 1 week video Zoom call, a 2-week and a 6-week. And that's just the standard.
Wow.
Because it's so critical, right? We work so hard to make sure that the delivery goes good, but now we need to work really hard to make sure breastfeeding is established. Yeah. Especially first-time moms, right? You've never done this. Your baby's never done this. It takes a little time to really learn about it. So I feel like it's a critical time is the early postpartums that women in the obstetrical care are just dismissed. They're like, now you go figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Well, I lived in Paris for 2 years and France, and I do remember, and I was in my early 20s then, and I remember I didn't have any children there, but I recall that families were really close. It's like they just had a relaxed feeling about family life. And, the women could still be very feminine and happy. And,
Yeah.
it's like there was this natural bond. And I was noticing how much more the children were happy. It was a relaxed relationship. It's like you could still be yourself and have a little glass of wine, of course, after, you've given birth and everything and have your kids. And there wasn't this like anxiety that it seems like we Americans here have, like, oh my God, my kids are acting up. I got to have a second glass of wine. And, I really want to go to this party, or I started this podcast, or whatever the thing is. Everything's out of sync. Is what it seems like. And so it's like if you're in sync with your body and your mind and your nutrition, and, then it just flows.
Absolutely.
There's no stress.
And it's super important.
Yeah.
I feel like we're sometimes are touched and not thinking about it. Like you're saying, we're so worried about like our phones, social medias, our work, and all this like outside that we forget to go inside, listen to our bodies and listen to that intuition and that strength that we all have. And it's important to bring it back.
Right. And also for the breastfeeding part.
Yes.
So I did breastfeed, but I will tell you the downside of that for me was mastitis.
Yes.
And I mean, I was like, let's see, how many bra sizes can you get? D, E, F, G, H, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was amazing how much lactation, can start.
Absolutely.
And it was almost as painful as going through a contraction. So and I had to be treated for that. But so then I drank water, and I even had a little bit of beer. I think somebody said that was good. Well, that brought on too much. But that's okay. So you were talking about aftercare.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you've dealt with women with mastitis.
I did it myself.
Oh, it's awful, isn't it?
Yeah, and I called my midwife, and I was like, I think I have mastitis. I was fine, and then suddenly I have a fever, and my breast is tender and red. And so she gave me, and I said, I don't want antibiotics. I need to figure out how to treat this natural before.
Okay.
I want to try everything natural. If it doesn't work, then I'll go to take the antibiotics.
Sure.
So I put my baby at the breast. I pump. I use cabbage leaves to put at the breast to reduce
I've heard that.
production. I ate raw garlic. I mean, you name it, I did it. I took new probiotics. I did everything that I could. And within 24 hours, everything was clear.
Wow.
Now, with that being said, there are women that they're not that lucky.
Yeah.
Right? And you do have to come to antibiotics if you need to. But if you catch it early enough, there's a lot of things that you can make sure that that clot just passes.
Yeah.
And the infection doesn't
Because it's a backup. Is it because the milk just comes in like 90 to nothing or something?
Yeah, it's because the static is probably like a clot that just stays there and that starts creating bacteria, right? So it needs to keep flowing. So that's why putting the baby at the breast every 2 hours, I mean, if baby wasn't emptying, I was using the pump.
Yeah.
Make sure that milk was just flowing and cleaning it out.
And for some of, if there's men watching and some young people who just can't imagine what this is all about, I'm telling you, our bodies are so complex.
Oh my
but
God, yeah.
I think this has probably happened to you then if you breastfed. So, every now and then you just got to get the heck out of the house, right? You can't just be in there all the time because the baby is a 24/7 project, especially a newborn. And, because they have to be fed so often and it's all on.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I went to the mall with a friend of mine. I had my little blanket because, I'm modest about it. And he was just like the perfect little sleepy baby, no issues at all. But if I heard some other baby cry, oh my God, yes. It's like, it's not even your child. It can be like
Everybody to child.
Yeah. All of a sudden, your breasts want to
Release.
Yeah, release. And that's why you have breast pads and stuff.
Absolutely.
But it's, these things, because I didn't hear about all of this stuff before. It was just like, oh my God, what's happening? Why is that happening? That's not my baby. This one's.
Yes. And just like you said, just a baby crying like far, far away. Even if you didn't have your baby with you, you just feel that let down. The milk just comes down and out tingling and you're like, oh no, I hope I have my pads. But yeah, breastfeeding it's the best thing you can do for your baby. It's also a lot of hard work. It's like labor and prepping, and
but it's comfortable because it's the same temperature and you can just sit there and you just get this peace about you. I just felt like, and so my husband, he was like, well, are you going to do dinner tonight or something? I'm breastfeeding right now,
currently making this.
Yeah, I am providing dinner to one individual in the family. You go put in a TV dinner or something. It was like I never use that as an excuse because I'm a hard worker. I mean, like a little squirrel. I'm just always doing something all the time. It was really just a time to just sort of breathe and relax. And then, you're nurturing this individual. This is a human being.
It's a beautiful connection, though.
It is.
Moments of like you're feeding and your baby's looking at you.
Yeah, it's so cute.
As they get older, they start playing with their hand in your face. Breastfeeding is such a beautiful journey.
It really is.
Some women have a harder time with it. It's really, really hard. One of the beautiful things of like the moms that we work with is when we have moms that were lucky like you, that were overproducers of milk, they donate their milk to other families.
Yeah, they should have.
So then the moms that don't, then having the issues and that we're trying to get things going can supplement with breast milk if they feel like it because they don't want to go to formula.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky to have formula these days for when we can't find anything else. But it is beautiful how like the community of women want to help each other.
I think that's wonderful. It should always be like that.
Yes.
In a perfect world, And it's, of course, you should also share with us the advantages of breast milk nutritionally for the baby.
Oh, it's so much. It's the best thing you can give to your baby. Because even let's say it's someone in your household is sick, you're already passing the antibodies to your baby to protect against anyone sick in the house. It has the perfect amount of proteins and fat that your baby needs. And it's cheap.
And fluid.
Yes. It's cheap.
Free.
All you have to do is maintain a good nutrition so you don't deplete yourself. And by eating a good nutrition, you can feed your baby, you can feed yourself, and you can do it anywhere. You don't have to take bottles.
I know.
You can lift a shirt and put a baby on there. But yeah, it's a perfect nutrition for a baby.
And it's a great relief. And also, I have read that it helps the uterus contract too.
Absolutely.
So your stomach gets down. Your abdomen basically reduces. And how many calories a day? I was reading, is it 800 to 1,000 calories that your body burns in order to produce this miracle food?
Absolutely. And you have to eat an extra 500 calories more a day than you did when you were not pregnant. So that's also important to think about all the fluids that you're drinking. Another thing that happens that's really interesting is how thirsty you get. I
remember that. Just craving.
It was like
water,
and needing that drink water throughout the whole time you're breastfeeding. It's like you thought you were going to put a baby at the breast and you're like, where's my cup of water?
You need it.
Absolutely.
And
you
it's
need
good for everything
all the
else.
fluids.
I was just thinking of something else that a few people know. Of course, I've told, like my friends or somebody's newly pregnant or something. I say, it's one really great advantage that we women have when we get pregnant that, men won't have is we're in positive nitrogen balance. We're in that positive nitrogen balance where our cells are turning over faster than they're dying. That's why a lot of times people say, oh, you look like you're glowing or your hair is thicker because it's like you're young again. Because obviously if you're creating a new life and his or her cells are turning over faster than they're dying because it's a brand new, because they're growing, then everything else in our body's growing.
Absolutely.
Our nails look better.
Oh, yes, the nails, the hair grows nice and light.
And we have better skin, So keep that in mind. There's a lot of sort of negative, like I said, I'm sensitive to all this stuff,
Yeah.
Like people like, oh, she's pregnant again, and it's like, why don't you make this a joyous occasion? Don't be all thinking that this has got to be, more dirty diapers.
Yes.
I don't know. Because I always want to see the brighter side.
The positive side, yeah.
That's why I talk about these things, and uplift each other.
I want to touch up on what you said about using breastfeeding to reduce your uterus to contract. That is one of the first things that we use right after baby is born. One of the first things we use for preventing bleeding, right?
Yeah.
Because baby is born and you're going to bleed a little. That is very normal.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we said is just latch baby, put baby next to the nipple because it would release the oxytocin and your uterus contract and prevent bleeding. So your baby already knows what to do from the very beginning to prevent moms from bleeding. So yeah, it's just magical.
It's supposed to work. Yeah, it's supposed to work in nature because it's a natural thing.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing.
This is really enlightening to me. And I just appreciate your wisdom. And do you have another quick story? Maybe some kind of fun.
Something fun. Let me see. Well, I had it
maybe not to interrupt, but like if there was the people I've heard anyway, I don't know anybody specific where, they might have children in the room when the birth is happening. I'm just wondering how it is.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God.
I love siblings in the room. I think it's the most empowering thing you can do as a family to show your kids that birth is natural and birth is okay. And the mom will be okay even though when she's making the noises that she's making to birth a baby.
Yeah.
So one of my first or second births I was doing with Paula as a student, the mom was a nurse and she had her daughter there. Her daughter was about 4 or 5 years old. And when I showed up, she was wearing the scrubs, that little sister, big sister. And the mom was birthing in hands and knees. And she was just right there next to the midwife and put her hands to catch her baby sister. So I know that for some families, it's a little bit hard to have siblings because they're like, oh, I don't want to worry about them. And I think that's going to get on the way. But the families that can bring the siblings on board, I love them. They're so curious. They want to know. And teaching them about the placenta. And they're like, look at this organ and how it works. And help mommy or help me do this vital. So listen to heart rhythms. And some kids really want to be involved. And some kids want to not be involved.
Yeah.
So it's just every family. We plan for everything. So we tell our moms all the time, with I have older kids, we're going to plan for A, B, C, and D, just in case, right? So if you don't want the kid in the room, we have something to do. If the kid doesn't want to be in the room, there's something to do. If it's nighttime, do you want to wake the kids up or you want to leave them sleep? So there's a plan for sure in place.
Yeah.
But I just think they're so cool when we have siblings in the room.
And it teaches them respect for life itself, for the human body, for all the things that we go through, men and women, and especially if the father's involved and how he treats his wife or partner. And, and that baby now has connected to everybody in the room. Because if it's just the woman by herself, there could be resentment that she might be feeling because, nobody else was involved. And I just, I have an inner wisdom. I think we all do if we really sit down and question things about life as it exists, that going back to original times, let's say, so-and-so many thousands of years BC, it was never an individual thing where somebody's just with people they don't really know, like doctors all alone. That the whole tribal energy was surrounding that person and giving her some support.
And also taking care of the kid afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Postpartum too, I feel like in our society these days, women are so isolated sometimes. And they have to think that they have to have the house ready and cook and clean and feed this baby. And postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety is super, super important to know that it happens.
Yeah.
It happens a lot because we're so isolated in this country. It's like inwards instead. And like you're saying in the past, it was all outwards. You had a community. I needed some rest and somebody else was taking care of your baby. So I'm always encouraging our moms to reach out and to go to meetups and to go meet other moms, to connect with other women.
Yeah. And share ideas. And wisdom.
Absolutely.
Because you can get, I think the internet is a wonderful thing. I really do, because there's so much information and you can get this one-on-one information. But we are human beings. We have a heart beating. We're made of flesh and blood. We really do need to stay connected and share stories and be joyous. And, it just brings about a type of energy that's supportive for us so that we can be happy and productive.
Yes.
And when you start isolating and, just dividing let's say, men from women or parents from their children or any of that kind of disconnection creates an imbalance. And then things that would have normally been something beautiful and mysterious and interesting becomes, like too much or, I don't want to deal with that and I'm happy to hear not only your stories, but just your whole energy is really about, respecting birthing babies
Yes.
because it's it's intense, but it's also very personal the way you can
Yeah.
be, I don't know. It's interesting to hear that because like I said, both of mine were born in the hospital. I was Rh negative. So they kind of told me, maybe you should have your, be there because you have to have a shot later and all that. And I was lucky enough, I had some family there and I had a friend that was waiting, but, I know that there's other incidences and I know of other stories that I've heard where it was really traumatic, not because the woman wasn't healthy, but just because of the family dynamics,
Yes.
which there wasn't any dynamic.
Yeah. And just to touch on your topic, as licensed midwives, we can give the ROGAM shot when you're negative.
Uh-huh.
That's something that we can do prenatally and the postpartum.
Oh, okay.
And we can give vitamin K. We can give antibiotics in labor. Yeah.
Yeah, the vitamin K is for clotting.
For clotting.
Uh-huh.
We can give antibiotics in labor if a mom is GBS or strep positive and she wants to do the antibiotics, we can do that. And we carry the same medications that the hospital has for hemorrhaging. So these are all things that we do carry with us.
Right.
We carry an oxygen tank and a pressurized air tank for resuscitating babies or oxygen for baby or mom. This all comes to the patient's house.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
For the just in case. 90% of the time, they just get cleaned up and they go back in our cars.
Wow. What do you want moms to wear when they're giving birth?
Whatever she wants.
A long gown or no?
We have moms that want to be completely naked, or moms that are very modest and want clothes and they just take their shorts or underwear towards the end.
Yeah.
I want the mom to be empowered to do what she feels at that moment and what she wants.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I thought I was going to wear a top and shorts and I was going to be modest and take pictures. And the moment labor started, I just couldn't have any clothing on me and I took everything off. And I was in my house. So I listened to how I felt at the moment.
Of course.
And we brought tubs. I labor most of the time in my tub in the water. And it was warm water, yes. It helps. We call them aqua doodles because it helps with the, kind of like an epidural, but with water. It really helps to ease the pain and the pressure of the contractions. So I labor a lot in water. So I was in and out of the water. So no, I really empower women to do what they feel at the moment. As long as it's safe for mom, baby, and us, she can do whatever she wants.
I wonder if some cultures use that method of giving birth in water, in a water setting.
In Europe, I know they use the pools for sure. You mean other cultures? Probably.
Yeah.
It is becoming more and more popular too. But I remember the first time I heard of a water birth was in Europe. And this is way before I even thought I would be a mom.
Wow. Gosh. I'm just ready to go take a nap after all this because, I sort of have when I think about, it's been so many years, but I'm, kind of projecting back at the, you have this high energy and then you go through that and I kind of tend to feel a lot of stuff in my mind and body, which I'm sure there's viewers that are also taking in this information and maybe reliving when you had a baby. And then after it's all over, it's like,
that's exactly it.
It really is. But what was funny, in fact, I was telling somebody the other day that right after with my first one, because I achieved something that was just so amazing, I thought, oh my Lord, I finally got through this. And look at what I got, a little friend here. And then it wasn't within just a few hours, I thought, I want to have another baby later on. Because you're on that endorphin high.
Yes.
And you just think, you can scale Mount Everest.
Well, you can. What your body actually goes through is like, well, you climb Mount Everest? Whoa, I birthed a human.
Yeah, I can do better than that. My God.
Absolutely. eating is super important in labor, because
Yeah.
and that's one thing that's taken away in the hospital. And so, but when you climbing Mount Everest, you're constantly eating and drinking because how's your body going to keep pushing forward? And in the hospital, we take that away from women because they're like, well, what if we end up in an emergency C-section? She can't eat anything. But then you have a mom that her body's exhausted.
Right.
So no, at home we're like eat, and most of the time women don't want to eat because you're in labor, you're working hard, but you just give it that little reminder. You just need a little more energy just to keep going, and they usually
strawberry cheesecake. My God,
absolutely honey sticks, energy balls. I mean, we prepare for labor smoothies.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Nutrition is so important all around.
yeah, of course. Yeah, and then even after, and that's one thing I want to touch on is when like people, well, after you have the baby, it's all over. I mean, I've heard a lot, and I know you have too. Because I've never met a stranger, and sometimes, of course, I might be the stranger with us, but sometimes I'll hear something, and I just have to, I'm curious, and I've heard like usually some guys, and I love guys, I love everybody, really, but I've like, well, after the baby's over, you don't have anything to worry about. I'm like, kidding me? Really, you're still a womb with a view for that baby, because that's when your body goes into a whole other vibe, right?
Yeah.
Now you're feeding the baby, and then they're constantly, you're never, in fact, for the rest of your life, if you're a mom, you are never free of that child. I'm telling you.
Yes.
You're never going to be free. They'll still ask you for advice. You can be in a hospital bed in your 90s, and it's like, well, Mom, let me ask you one more question, or Grandma, let me ask you one more question. So that attachment, starts at conception.
Yes, 100%.
Never stop.
Never stop.
So prepare yourself. Fasten your seatbelt. You're in for a bumpy ride.
It is, but it's the best ride. It has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really hard, for sure. As a mom of two, sometimes I'm like, oh my God. But then you have those moments where like you have that hug. Like, I love you so much, Mom.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because that is the best love
I've ever felt
on earth. It's not the eros, the romantic love. It's not, like adolescents. Adolescents love you one minute, and then they just think you're just a creep the next minute. They go back and forth. But that is the most natural, innocent, pure love. Is when a child, God, I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. But like when they're 2 or 3 or 4, and they just want to be with you.
Yes.
And
they just want to love you.
Yeah.
And they just want your attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, Mom, I'm here.
Yeah,
Just
and
hear
it's
me.
sweet.
Yes.
And there's no hidden agenda or anything, especially if they, they pat you on your back or something because you're feeling tired. I mean, you've had that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. I definitely have had that. I am having the sassy one that's starting to be 8 now, but I have a 5-year-old girl that still is like very much, I want to play with dolls and hug you. I love you, Mom. And like you're saying, there's something right there. Like that love, that connection, you don't even feel it with romantic partners with.
No.
It's just so special and so magical and so pure.
Oh, and I want to do another show. We'd like to have you back again, because I was just thinking of something, because it seems like you look at everything holistically. But this disconnect, this is what hurts my heart, honestly, is seeing the parents, like even at a grocery store or anywhere, just disengaging with their child, and that child just wants to, it's not just that the child wants to be loved, but they want some kind of attention because they have something to share with their parent. And it's like, they'll say, shut up or something. And not that I didn't get exasperated with my kids, but I will say, I really was never like, just intentionally mean.
Absolutely.
And I do see, and again, I'm seeing more of that, it's like, I'm on the phone, and it's like, okay, put that thing down. Because this is a human being. And also as a teacher, I know I'm jumping around, but as a teacher, I remember some of my parents would say stuff like, he asks so much questions, I just can't keep up with everything he's asking or she's asking. And I would say, and again, it's not that I was a perfect parent, because I would be impatient with mine too, but I'd say he or she is asking questions because they want to learn. I said, this is the time that is a wonderful time for you guys to establish a rapport between each other,
Yeah.
and it's hard sometimes, but
It is hard sometimes to parents, but
yeah.
But like you're saying, is that disconnect, right?
Mm.
That is happening in our generation
Yeah.
of like the phones,
Right.
work,
Mm-hmm.
making money. That like go, instead of taking one step back and take a deep breath and be like, let's just be present right now.
Right.
Even in the supermarket, put the phone down and talk about bananas and whatever.
Uh-huh.
That question that kid might have at that moment. And it's super important.
I want to do this all over again after
Have another baby.
yeah, that would be a miracle. I don't have the vitals for that. It has been such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure being here and talking about what home birth looks like, and just also explaining that midwifery and home birth are not just praying and sage and hoping for the best. We are
spreading that.
we are educated and we have knowledge, and we do have resources to have families safe at home. And when it's not, then we're the first ones to go.
I think that was also informative that you have your arsenal of caregiving equipment.
Yes.
You have all that on site and you can do the ROGAM shots. And I didn't really realize that was available. So anyway, if any of our viewers are more interested in this, you can go to my website, join the conversation with summerkeith.com. If you have questions or comments, or if you want to say good things about what you learned, please share them with us, because this is how we know what to continue to produce shows for you, for, just developing information and learning about new things that will better your life and help you. Thank you for joining us on Join the Conversation with Summer Keith, and we look forward to hearing from you. And welcome back next time on Join the Conversation with Summer Keith. Thank you.